Hey, it's Biddy Penny. Welcome back to my channel. Well, you guys, I have another scrap busting video for you. I'm using up a bunch of scraps. The first thing I started with this time were some printables like ephemera. These girls right here are from Sweet Pea Curiosities, and I just think they're so fabulous. I shrunk them down to get 4 copies to a page. I had those labels from Tsunami Rose, who's on a short break. And then I have all these scraps from my stash, like tons and tons of paper scraps. And I have a few different kinds. This video is it's going to be all encompassing. I hope you'll watch the whole thing because I think you'll get a lot from it. But some of the scraps I have are like unfinished cards or really basic cards. So like that one right there. I have also just a box of card fronts, which can be like solid colors. Some of them are patterned paper. And basically it's just paper that's cut down to cover the front of a card. I had 2 card fronts that are Franken paper. And then I had a really fun card base, some embossed paper. This box just has a little bit of everything, but basically it's a lot of pages that are cut down to either like 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 or 4 by 6. They're abandoned projects like this one here where I had done some watercoloring. This project here is a card that I had abandoned. So I have a lot of different kind of scraps today. I also have like really scrappy scraps. Then I have some mini slimlines. This video has 3 different card sizes. But because I had a bunch of these like pre-cut mini slimline card fronts. When I say a card front, it is just a piece of paper to cover the front of a card. It's not the card base. I have to distinguish that for you because that's how I approach card making, is I typically always work with a card front and then I attach it to my base. I even found like these wood pieces in my scrap bin. I found all kinds of things. And I'm going to show you how to use some of these really scrappy little pieces. We're going to make 3 different card sizes and we're going to use all kinds of different scraps. So some that are bigger, that are actually card fronts. Some pieces that are smaller. I love the 2-inch strips that I can get off a 6x6 paper pad. I'm also going to show you how to use 6x6 paper to make card bases. So we're just going to have all kinds of fun here today. At least I hope you do. I had a whole lot of fun making the cards. I made 17 cards from my scraps and I'm excited to have these now in my stash. I did a combination of sentiments for all different things. I really wanted to use these. These are from Tsunami Rose. Her Etsy shop is not up right now, so I'm so sorry, but maybe you had seen me work with these in the past and you had picked them up. You know, with Etsy shops, I would say don't snooze on printables. We have a feeling like they'll always be there, but they may not. And that's a lesson I've learned before too, when I was looking for specific printables and then I'd see them there and then the shop would shut down or the shop would be on vacation or the shop just would stop selling that printable. So it's just something to think about. But I can't wait till Daisy brings back Tsunami Rose. Okay, so I have this abandoned card front. It just was never quite done to me. And so I decided that I would add a sentiment and add this little girl to it and finish off this card front. So maybe in your scraps, you have some abandoned projects. So the first idea that I have for you today is to revisit your abandoned projects. And if you're anything like me, they all go in the same box. So I have these little boxes that kind of collect unfinished business in my craft room. And that's what I'm trying to bust through. I'm trying to bust through all kinds of boxes in my craft room of unfinished business, if you will. That's what I consider scraps. And just to tell you the truth, I have been having the best time with my scraps. I hung out with my friend Debbie on her channel. I'll leave the video link down below. I hung out with her the other day, and I wasn't really sure. It was like a really spontaneous session for us to work together. And so I wasn't sure what we were going to do. And I just decided to use my scraps. And I made 5 cards out of scraps while we sat there and talked and visited with everyone in the chat. It was such a fun live. And thanks to all of you who came over and hung out with us. I know Kathy was there, and Rhonda, and so many others. So thank you so much for coming over. Empty Nest Scrapper was there. Like, so many people were there. So thanks for coming out over. But I just had the best time playing with my scraps and just making a bunch of random cards. And I just keep doing it. And eventually I'm going to bust through this huge pile of scraps that I have. I love that I'm finishing these projects. These 3 cards that I'm doing with you right now, the finishing of these 3 cards, are something that have been sitting in this box for easily 2 years. Just unfinished work for 2 years. And now I've turned them into something that I will use. So I love this little girl so much. I put her on here, and then I did decide to use those wood pieces. And I'll tell you that I really like to color those wood pieces with alcohol ink. It looks so cool. But I didn't do that for this one because it's a pretty kind of clean and simple design. I just kept them the natural wood color and adhered them to those sentiments. The happy sentiment is raised. So I did end up having to put foam behind my smiling girl there, my happy girl there, just to make sure that everything is level. So I do add foam tape to the back of her and adhere her there at the top. I just used scraps. I used that green scrap at the top, a gray scrap down at the bottom. I mean, it's a very scrappy card, but it's not a card that I would set out to design. This isn't a card, and this is, I think, what I like about making scrap cards is that they're mindless. You don't have to think about it. It's not something that I sit and think, oh, what if I did this, this, and this, like preemptively. It's in a design way. It's just, you get your materials out like this one, and you work with what you've got, and you make the best of it. And I would say if you get kind of bogged down with decision fatigue, that scrap cards are probably the way to go, at least to help bust up some of that feeling. Now, with this sticker, which a friend had sent me, thanks, Sarah, I am going to cut out the clear border that was around it. And right here, I am just sticking it directly down to the card, but I ended up not liking that because it's not even, and that's something that bothers me. So I ended up peeling it up. I stuck it to white cardstock, cut it out, and glued it on top. You'll see what it looks like at the end of this video. But that is something I do with stickers quite a bit. I don't use a whole lot of stickers on my card without putting them on cardstock first and cutting them out. That's typically how I use stickers. And then I'm all about it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this one down to a card base. And I just love this card so much. That face with the thank you is pretty much how I feel every time I get happy mail from you guys. Oh my goodness. And then this little pouty face girl. Oh, I have some pictures of me when I was little, and I think I had a similar face. So I understand her. I get her. I thought these sentiments were just perfect to go along with her. I stitched her to some of this other scrap paper that I had. Oh, this was a beloved sheet of Maggie Holmes that is gone now. It has been used. And so I used that to kind of frame her and stick down these sentiments, prove them wrong, and never give up. I don't know. I just felt like those really went with her sweet little face. Even though it's not a happy face, it's still a sweet little face, and I love it very much. We just feel that way sometimes, and that's okay. That would be a great picture to put with like, it's okay to not be okay kind of sentiment too. But then, of course, I love the big smiley happy girls as well. So we've got dream big and own who you are, I believe is what the other one says. And so I thought those were really great. I think it's going to be so fun starting off my new year to have cards like this in my stash. So that's exciting. I had cut out these stars from my scraps as well. I'm going to pull out the die set and show you because it cuts stars and hearts and a little banner. It's from Lawn Fawn. It's an older one. It's an oldie but goodie. It has these little tags that it cuts out, and then all those hearts and stars of different sizes. And I just love adding them as embellishments to my cards. So I decided on this one to put a few hearts on there. I hope you guys are having a really good day. Can you believe it's almost the new year? I can hardly believe it. By the way, I'm going to be on Craft Roulette. I'm going to leave it linked down below. I hope you guys will come hang out with me and Mary on Craft Roulette as we cut up and make cards and bring in the new year. Okay, so you can see these are really scrappy pieces. These are pieces I had left over from my session with Debbie, and I'm tearing away the pieces that I had kind of die cut out of. Well, not kind of. I die cut out of this paper. I'm tearing away those pieces. You could probably incorporate them, but I didn't necessarily want to for this. I'm going to take all of these along with a 12 by 12 sheet of paper that I'm not too fond of. It's not a bad design or anything. It's just not anything I'm going to use in my card making or junk journaling. So I'm going to take that, and I did decide to have the white side facing upwards. That way I can tell what's been covered and what hasn't more easily than if it was that really busy print. And then I'm going to take my biggest pieces, which I happen to have 4 that are roughly the same size, and I'm going to put those in my 4 corners. This is just something, how many of these sheets have I done over the years? Probably 50 or more sheets like this. And this is just something I like to do. I like to take my biggest pieces and go ahead and get my corners done. There is no law. You do not have to do this. This is not a thing that I think most people do. It's just how I approach a masterboard, which is what most junk journalers call this process, is a masterboard. I love it for card making because I think it makes really interesting and unique and one-of-a-kind cards in a flash. And you can use all your tiniest scraps. Now, these are pretty good sized scraps right here, but the rest of the scraps that I'm going to use on this masterboard are pretty small, including like branding strips. Because we all know there's a granny inside of me who doesn't want to throw anything away. And yeah, there's just all these random little strips of paper, different sizes, some that I had die cut out of, or multiple ones that I had die cut out of. And I try not to have to cut things down as I go. I think that is a quick way to make one of these masterboards, is if you don't get caught up trimming a bunch of paper. I am just laying this paper down as it came. I'm not making a lot of edits to it whatsoever, because I just don't think you should have to. Now, that does mean that my masterboards aren't perfectly flat or even, because there's layers of paper and some have more layers than others. But that is something that, for me, aesthetically is pleasing. I like that it's not all just one flat sheet where everything's perfectly even. But it is something to consider in case that isn't you aesthetically pleasing to you. Out of one of these masterboards with a 12 by 12 sheet of paper, I cut it down so that I can get 6 5 by 7 cards out of it, which is awesome. You could also cut it down to get, let me think about it for a second. I think you'd still get 6 4 by 5 1/4 as well. So you could make, 6 card fronts for either one of those sizes. Of course, you could cut them down even smaller and get a ton of ATC cards out of a masterboard like this, or any other size that you like. I am going to be making mini slimlines here with you guys in this video, and that is just another wonderful size for scrap busting. So here it is. Here's my masterboard all done. And these are the scraps that I had left over. I still end up using most of them, and I just add a little here, a little there until it is all done. I basically go by paper size. So I did my 4 biggest pieces in my corners, and then I go to my next biggest sizes and I lay those down. And I keep working this masterboard until my tiniest little scraps are gone. And that's how I keep from having to trim a bunch of stuff or have weird edges or anything. I don't know. To me, this is the way to go, because I can also use like those skinny pieces to kind of cover different seams that might be bothering me. And for me, it is the glue that glues the whole collage together, working from largest to smallest. Okay, I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to cut it without looking at it. I don't want to look at it and be second guessing. I'm just going to turn it over, cut it to 4 inches each time. Now this one had a little bit of paper sticking up over the edge, and I do want to trim it off even though it's just a hair, because I want straight edges. But yeah, I'm going to cut that all down to 3 4-inch strips, and then I'm going to cut those down to 4 by 6. So I will get 6 pieces without any scraps, which is desirable right now because I'm trying to use up my scraps. So I love it when I can get 6 card fronts, have no scraps, and I've used up all my tiny scraps. It's kind of fun to turn these over and reveal it's a mystery what you're going to get every time. But to see how the cookie crumbled, if you will, and to see what kind of, card front you might be working with, you can do this with your scraps and then go grab your ephemera. And I mean, it's just so much fun. But I already knew what ephemera I was working with, obviously. But that is another thing you can do, is you could just collage a bunch of your scraps onto those 12 by 12 sheets and then pick your ephemera based on how things turn out. I have some other scraps. I keep my solid cardstock scraps all together in one place, and I'm going to use those to back these little girls for the next 6 cards. Now, I did decide I didn't really want that blue. I mean, it was fine. There was nothing wrong with it, but I wanted to use this really pretty, like plum purple color. I don't know what it is. Magenta. I don't know. This color. I wanted to use this color. So what I ended up doing was trimming my girls down so that they would fit on there really well. And I made it work. So I made a really fun journal and a live video with you guys. It was my Girl Gang journal. I worked on finishing it up, and I even worked on it a little bit in Debbie J's live before, while I was hanging out with her in the green room. And so that journal's almost done. Okay, here is a 6x6 pad of paper. Now this one is cardstock weight, so it's a nice thick cardstock weight. I grabbed 4 sheets because that's how many I need I need one 6x6 sheet for a card base, for each card base for my mini slimlines. And then I grabbed 2 sheets to make a card front. So here's what I gotta do. I gotta take off the branding strip. Okay, but this now measures 6x6. I'm gonna score this at 3 inches. Okay, so once I have my 6x6 paper, I'm just gonna score at 3 inches. That 3-inch score line is the fold for my card. So if your paper is directional, you may want to think about it. This was ledger paper with numbers. I decided, because I didn't want my numbers to be upside down on the back or the front of the card, that I would make those the insides of my cards. And because this paper is single-sided and I didn't want a white card front, I took those other 2 pieces, these right here, trimmed them down so that they're 6x6, and then just trimmed them at 3 inches. So that gave me 4 card fronts to go on the front of these card bases, and then I'm going to put my girls on top of those. So this is very much like a stash busting card design. If you are anything like me and you have way too much 6x6 paper in your stash, then this would be a great way to use it up. You can make yourself card bases out of it and then make some adorable little card fronts. I did decide to trim these down. I wish I would have done that before I designed them, but it worked out that it wasn't a big deal for me to trim them down afterwards. I just wanted that slight border all the way around. I seem to not be happy as a card maker if I don't have a little bit of a border on the front of my card, even if I have to cut it after the fact. So these mail in 6 3/4 inch envelopes. They're really inexpensive. You can find them at any grocery store, drugstore, Walmart, anywhere. Okay, let's take a look at the 17 cards. So these are the ones I started with. They were the unfinished cards in my stash, which were in my scraps, and see how that turned out with the sticker. And now these are the mini slimlines that we just finished up together. I think they are so precious, and that little bit of stitching I did around each girl's portrait, I feel like was the right choice. I had these in my stash and I just had to add a quote to each one. The work was pretty much done. I just knew they needed something else, and I dug into my ephemera and grabbed quotes. For these precious girls, I went into my button collection and I added 3 buttons. I heard someone say the other day that buttons are out and just not what people do in card making anymore. And I think the rebel in me was like, oh yeah, buttons are out. Oh, people don't use those anymore. Oh, I will be using buttons. Thank you very much. Like, I get frustrated when people get too trendy and think that everyone has to make cards like all the biggest card making YouTubers. You really don't. Here I am on a soapbox. Make the cards that make you happy. Who cares if they're trendy? Who cares if you have buttons or ribbon or twine? That really doesn't matter. Make the cards that make you happy. These cards delight my heart. I didn't have to spend $50, $75, $100 shopping online to buy these products. They were something I had in my stash. Everyone has scraps in your stash. I just want to encourage you to get them out, play with them, and have fun. All right, I hope you enjoyed it. I love you guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.